to Joe Tom. Oh my god.
Around 5 months ago, me and a team of 6 people took on a crazy project of shooting 5 one-take videos whilst recording the live audio on a piano that we shot in 5 different locations across 2 days.
Nathan's just broken a mic, so at least we didn't do that earlier.
The mic's just broken, so that's good. Right at the end.
Anyway,
Well, that's that then.
When we started planning this project, I don't think it quite sunk in how crazy it actually was. Like recording a whole one take in a video, which is hard enough, but then also recording the live audio that is going to be released as an EP is just like, that's unheard of. I don't know anyone else that is doing a project like that. So I really give credit to the artist Amelia Tarrant for coming up with this idea, and I mean her ideas are crazy as it is, and if you'd seen some of my other video breakdowns that I've done with Amelia, you know she puts you to the test, so this one was no different. The equipment that I used on this one was the Sony FX3, and I used the DJI RS4 for the gimbal, and then we had 2 mics that went into an interface that then went into a laptop that recorded the live audio. The first location didn't actually quite go to plan. The original spot we were meant to go to was just too muddy and it was too wet, and we couldn't actually take the piano to the location we wanted to. So we had to think of a plan B, and Amelia knew of this location that was in a tunnel, but it was on a public road, which made it challenging because we're putting a big piano with all this audio equipment and me recording around her on an active road where cars are coming around the corner and potentially could be in danger depending on how fast they're going, but also to an inconvenience to them to wherever they're going. Now, we were there for the first 10 minutes or so and a few cars were coming through and we were thinking, oh no, it's going to be a tough day. But the longer we were there, we were probably there for about 15-20 minutes, and there was these gaps where there were no cars coming along, which gave us confidence to go, okay, let's actually do this. And for lighting, I didn't actually do anything. I didn't add any lighting in. The natural light that was coming through the tunnel and kind of laying off the further it went into the tunnel was great. It was so soft and it kind of created that contrast for me, so I didn't actually need to do anything, which was great. For me in my process, I was very much going with my creative intuition on each location. Now, I hadn't been to any of the locations before we started shooting, which obviously isn't the ideal. You would want to go to each location before shooting to kind of gauge lighting and set out a plan, but because I was touring a lot last year, I didn't actually get the chance to do any recce with Amelia, so I was really just trusting Amelia, and she's got a great eye for it anyway, so I knew she wouldn't pick anywhere that wouldn't work, but I was really just thinking on my feet the whole time. So on day 1, we shot 2 of the one takes. The first one in the tunnel, and then the second one was at Amelia's grandparents' house. And this one, we really wanted to have like a warm, cozy feeling in it. My idea for the lighting was to have kind of this flickery fire ambience and lighting effect on her face, but I couldn't quite get it to look exactly how I want it to get. I wanted to kind of use the fire in the background as a motivation fire flicker, but I couldn't quite get it to work. And I put a Forza 60 on a softbox facing Amelia, but I found it was too harsh. It looked too unnatural for the environment we were in, and because we're in such a tight space, there was no kind of, I couldn't move the light further away to kind of create that softness as it got to Amelia. It was just, it looked unnatural and it looked harsh, so pointing up to the ceiling and reflecting it off the white just worked really well. The key to shooting a good one take is knowing what you're going to do next. Now, what I mean by that is when you're moving with the gimbal in a one take, you need to know what movement you're going to do next. Because if you commit to something and then readjust or backtrack on what you're doing, then it will really take the audience out of the free-flowing kind of movement that you want to give. You don't want it to be jolty, especially in something like this when it's a soft piano. You want all the movement to feel purposeful and intentful, and to not feel like you're chucking the audience everywhere through the camera. Because if you hesitate and think twice and go back on your movement after you've committed a certain way, then it will just take the audience straight out of the video. Now, this is easier said than done, and it comes with practice, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. But just keep that in mind when you're placing your foot one after another. You really have to make your steps intentful and know what exactly you're going to do after every single step. On day 2, we shot 3 of the one takes, and the next one was still at Amelia's grandparents' house, but this time it was in the garden. Now this one was interesting because on the day it was super harsh light and we were kind of in this dark corner in the garden. Some parts were covered by this harsh light, others were kind of in this dark shadow. So what I ended up doing is blasting the Forza 60 at Amelia with no softbox, just pure light, and it kind of filled in those negative shadowy spaces on Amelia. There was a lot of takes that we did where the sun would come out and then it would kind of be slightly overexposed, or it would go away and it would not be our friend. But the more we were doing it, and this one in particular we did many times, and the reason why we did it so many times is because there might be a camera movement that I wasn't happy with, or if I was happy with the take, Amelia wouldn't be happy with her performance or how the audio sounds, so we would do it again. And again, this is why this project was so hard, because so many things had to come together in such unison for us to even walk away with a good take. I did also have a bounce board up that was just in front of Amelia, but that didn't really have too much of an effect, not as much as I wanted to, but it was giving something, so I just kind of left it there and hopefully it added a little something. And what's so crucial about one takes is you need to merge so many different shot types into one continuous movement. Now, a good way to do this is at the start of the one take, you start out wide, and then as you slowly move in, that turns into a close-up, and then you can potentially move away and turn around the subject, and then that can turn into a medium shot, and then you could do a close-up on the hands if they're playing the piano, move back up to a close-up of their face, and then you can go wide again. That's really the key of one takes, is merging all these different shot types in one continuous movement. This follows on from what I said before about making sure you're intentful with your footsteps. Is exactly the same thing with this. They go in unison. There's a lot to think about when you're doing one continuous take. Your footwork needs to be really light and delicate and intentful. In your brain, you need to be thinking about what shot you're going to do next that's also in unison with your feet. And if anyone has used a gimbal before, or you're yet to use one, there's almost a delay on the gimbal. You need to be moving before you actually do the shot on the gimbal. There's a very specific technique that you use, and again, you'll only learn that and get better at it the more you use the gimbal. And when you're changing between each of these shots, you need to have a mental timer. I like to think between 5 and 15 seconds. That's when you change shot types, and it's a nice continuous change of shots and movement, and it doesn't make the viewer get bored, because that's the main thing with the one take. If you just stay in one position and just show the audience one shot and you don't move, it's boring, it's not exciting at all. But if you blend in all these different shot types at a well-timed rate, then you're golden. And then continuing on in day 2, we moved the piano to the final location where we were shooting 2 of the one takes. And the first one was in this beautiful bluebell field, and this one in particular required a bit of patience because the sun was just going in and out between the clouds, and the location looked the best when the sun was beaming down and it was going through the trees, and it was creating this beautiful pattern on the bluebells. The bluebells were really shining, they were blue and it just looked great with the green, everything. So we actually did a take that we were super happy with. Amelia was happy with the audio, I was happy with the video, but the sun wasn't out, it was cloudy, and I just knew that we could do better, especially visually. I knew that we had a better take in there, but it was just whether we moved on. The sun was setting, we were a bit pressed for time, so we were umming and ahhing, and then as we were discussing it, the sun came out and it looked like it was going to be there for a little while before it hit the next cloud. So everyone kind of rushed their station, got the audio up, I started recording, and I think it took us a couple takes to get the final one we needed, but we got it, and I'm so glad we did, because it looks 10 times better when it's all sunny. And then the last one was actually a pain in the bum, because like I just said, we were a bit pressed for time and the sun was setting, so we didn't have that much time at all. Like, we didn't want this dark thing, we kind of wanted this sunset feeling, and the sun was rapidly disappearing, and we were actually under a flight path, so helicopters, planes would fly over continuously, almost circle us. That's not good when you're trying to record a live audio take that's going to get published as an EP. You don't want those sounds in the background, although it would be authentic. You don't want those sounds in the background. So we had to keep stopping and starting every time one would come over, because it would ruin the take. So, and obviously at this point, it's the end of the day. We've just been shooting non-stop for 2 days. Some of the team members had already left to go home because it was getting late. In those moments, you do have to dig a little bit deep and kind of try and inspire everyone and motivate everyone to be like, oh, come on, let's get this. And Amelia was great. And obviously we ended up getting the take. And I just had like a little light stand next to Amelia that was kind of faking a sunset, because the sun wasn't coming through at all. So I kind of faked that sunset and kind of that golden orangey look on Amelia's face. And again, the stars aligned because the take that we've used, the sun came out midway through, and the shot where the camera's kind of overhead of Amelia, I just love so much. I think it's my favorite shot I did across all 5 one takes. It insinuates what I mean around changing shots. This one in particular, there was such a small space we were in, and I had to get creative. I couldn't move that far away, I couldn't get a wide, so how can I make it interesting that I hadn't done in the other one takes, and that was kind of that overhead shot, and I just love it. It looks great. And I would go as far as say this is one of the best creative projects that I've worked on, just because of how much had to go right across the 2 days. And it didn't feel like we were working. I mean, this team is incredible. We really all kind of built a bond during this shoot. I'm so glad I've finally been able to sit down and talk about it, because it's had such a great creative and personal impact on me. It was just such a great experience, but also one of the hardest things I think altogether as a project I've shot and worked on, so I'm incredibly proud of it. But I hope everyone's had a great start to their 2025, and I will see you soon.